Dan Gottlieb and Penny Herscovitch are founders of pAdLAb, which is a firm that investigates materials, architecture, material research, and spatial installations. In addition to their professional practice with pAdLAb, they're also both instructors at Art Center up in Pasadena, and for their lighting course at Art Center, they received a grant from the Knuckles Fund for Lighting Education in 2007. Penny and Dan.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out and sticking it out this evening. There was an awesome group of presenters, and we're excited to be going last, hopefully not least. And we're going to share with you tonight 3 different aspects of our practice. pAdLAb, our studio materials and lighting innovation, our teaching at Art Center. If any of our students are still here, you are going to get extra credit. And our recent research trip to Japan to study artisans working with traditional and contemporary materials.
So it unites these 3 practices. Is first, this hands-on direct approach shown up on the screen. And second, it's this concept we call materialized light. So it's the interdependence of light and materials one on the other. So in a vacuum, in the absence of matter, it's almost impossible to perceive light. And likewise, in darkness, materials lose their kind of visual qualities.
And we're going to end tonight by zooming into the details, and hopefully through this palette of light and materials, give you guys a source of inspiration. Using these very basic principles, refraction, reflection or bouncing, and diffusion or scattering light, and looking at them in a new way with new and innovative materials.
So diffusion is, we'd like to talk about it as like being in a cloud. So light is coming from every direction, it's heading towards every direction. And the first material we developed at pAdLAb was called Flexicomb, whose goal was to basically translate the intangible sensation of experiencing cloud into a tangible and tactile material.
And what is this stuff? It actually started out with drinking straws that are fused together under heat and pressure, and then we realized that in a real building, drinking straws would melt and don't pass fire code, so we started exploring different types of materials. And all of these tubes really come together and create almost a laminar flow of light.
So after making a teardrop luminaire on the right, we started to ask questions about Flexicomb. If it could interact to touch, what would the proper response be? So on the left is this interactive Flexicomb piece that responds to it by bending to intensity of light, color of light, and there were embedded 2 speakers, so there's 2 channels of sound that bend the light back and forth.
And we're really interested in bringing our studio process of kind of giving new life to everyday materials to the classes that we teach. Whether it's exploring tamale skins or grapefruit skins, soap or salt, it's looking at these everyday materials and finding something new and magical that you would never see before and fundamentally transforming them. 100 billion plastic bags are thrown out each year in this country, and our student Yusun took this inspiration to transform these bags into new glowing material. And often it's the least beautiful and materials that have the most powerful transformations.
So Skin and Heart is a mesmerizing project by our student Celine Lee that dissects a loofah sponge into a renewable natural resource, and she resews the skin of it into a linear diffuser on the right, and then almost crochets the seed pods or the hearts in the center into 2 concentric spheres on the left that are acting as a double diffuser.
Next, reflection, and like the water reflecting off the pool onto the Golden Pavilion's eaves, there's the textile artists we met in Japan are creating 3-dimensional textiles that reflect light and really embrace some of Tanizaki's principles. The gold lacquerware in the room kind of bouncing off this small amount of light.
So from the metallized coatings that turn fabrics into luminous reflectors to the 1,000-year-old knotting and dyeing techniques called shibori. What began as a way to create 2D patterns can now be adapted as a way to, for a material to remember the 3-dimensional knot patterns that have been tied into it, creating complex dimensional surfaces.
And moving from textiles as reflectors to metal as a textile, reinventing one of those little metal scrubby sponges as something that you would never recognize. This was part of a lighting workshop that we taught in Hong Kong in just 4 days. There's a complete transformation and reimagining of material.
So Tony Chu, another student of ours, took a process that was an opportunity seeking, and rather than solving a question, he's looking at opportunities in this honeycomb and metallized plastic combination of a material he invented that reflects really, each little indentation becomes its own reflector of light. Stu Fingerhut's Kenema series is a pendant made entirely from adjustable louvers that change orientation to reveal and conceal light based on the mood. And Ju Lim on the left explores the ephemeral qualities of the 80s magnetic cassette tape woven into a mesh, creating a play of light and shadows.
And we're going to end on refraction. And this artist, Susan Durgis, I think embodies what we see as the magic in the details. Each of these little water droplets is refracting a different perspective of the whole picture. And I think through these details, hopefully you get to see a larger picture.
Ooh.
So bubble glass is a material that we developed that freezes little tiny air bubbles that are controlled between layers of glass. And instead of water as the refractor, each one of these air bubbles becomes a lens. And we're used to glass serving as a lens, but usually it's the solid part of glass. And bubble glass is actually the voids that become the lens into whole other worlds. And bubble glass traps not only controlled air, but it also traps light. And this is, I think, was the essence of material as a refractor. It embodies the light inside the material and projects it back out.
So we got to meet with Kazue in Japan, who's been capturing freeze or molten glass falling from a two-story kiln for decades. He's been drizzling kind of streams of glass for days at a time, from an upper kiln and catching it to a lower kiln for up to 3 days.
And he's also, we love how he adapts processes. He totally hijacked a marble-making factory for his own purposes and creates these materials that kind of reach out and capture light. And to wrap up the night.
So from our studio to teaching to traveling, we're still fascinated by this idea of materialized light and the interdependence of light and materials and the magic of a hands-on exploration and innovation. Thank you
very much.